Go time! What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I am so glad to be back. I feel like we have been apart for like the longest time ever. And I know it's only been like 3 weeks. Well, maybe it's been 4 weeks now with the Snowmageddon last week.
We tried last week.
We tried, and it didn't work.
No.
And we were all giving each other shit like, well, I got a truck. We should be able to do this. And then I saw the lounges closing at 4. I'm like, well, it's definitely not happening now. But welcome back to Common Sense 2025. Excited to be back here with you guys. Sorry we were a little late. This shit does not like to load sometimes. And Biz and I uploaded all the keys before we even started. But
we're good now.
We're good. So let's rock and roll. So I'm not going to give this guy a big introduction because you probably already heard that if you guys saw the first episode with him. But you guys, welcome back, my dude, Josh Straussberger. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Good to be here.
It's good to see you again. I'm going to get to see you twice in 1 week.
I know, right?
This
2 days
like
from now, yeah.
Biggest oddity in the world. Josh has been in town for all of like 3 weeks and hasn't traveled anywhere. This is like really impressive.
I know. I'm itching to go.
Yeah,
I think my wife's probably itching for me to go.
I was going to say, is Jennifer ready for you to absolutely get the hell out of the house?
When do you head to California? I'm like, not till February.
Few more weeks here with me. So last time you were with us in our conversation, you talked about your journey to Dallas from the big old Memphis. And starting the gyms, and we got into your passion for Jiu-Jitsu as you're one of the key guys there at Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu. We got into all that. And how you guys have blended your faith with martial arts and created this following and everything. So I don't want to just completely go down that path again with you today, but I do want to go a little deeper into like the integrated leadership principles that you have really journeyed down over the last few years. And, being around all these, elite leaders of men and the people that you associate with, and how you balance it all between the life, the business, the travel, all of that stuff. Because I think there's so many things we can kind of unpack there that honestly, I don't know how the fuck you do it. Like, I'm just like, man, like, and we talk, we don't talk, but we kind of communicate daily.
Yeah, every couple days at least, something.
We're sending each other some kind of bullshit meme or little jab here and there on social media or a text message. But, maybe we'll start with like, I'm going to go off script here a little bit just because I think this is important. Like, communication is going to be a big thing that we're going to really dive into this year. Is I'm really starting to work through the stuff that Redmond challenged me on with my speaking engagements and stuff like that. So I've made that a goal to get that, like, really starting to finalize that and put something together there. But one of the key things that I think people really lose track of, and it's something I am thoroughly impressed with you, is how you've navigated networking and building relationships. I think that takes a certain type of person. It takes a certain kind of vulnerability and respect and earning it. And I think so many people struggle with building relationships, finding mentors, making connections. So maybe talk about that a little bit in your journey there, because I don't think a lot of people know, and I don't think we really dived into that a whole lot. So you've got the kickboxing gyms that you deal with. You've got the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu thing. And I know you don't talk about this a whole lot.
Right.
But I want to dig down that as far as it's comfortable and we can. But like, you're a big part. I consider you a pretty big part of like Echelon Front and FTX and stuff. And like, you guys are, you're at events constantly with them and stuff. And that has to, I know you started at the bottom just because it was a passion for you and you put yourself in those arenas, but maybe talk to everybody a little bit about that and what that was like and what your goals were, what your mindset was, and how you developed that relationship, because now you're pretty much like full time that.
Yeah.
Your gyms are self-sufficient, sustaining, and you've got that stuff for the most part taken care of. But now you're doing t-shirt company and printing and everything else. Like, I mean, I'm impressed at how you're juggling and balancing all these things, but maybe talk about that like from the relationship standpoint.
Yeah. So one of the questions was my goal going into it. I think really I just started out trying to help a buddy out. Now I was familiar with extreme ownership and Jocko and all that, obviously. So, it was just cool. Like, hey, I get to go volunteer at this event and meet these awesome people and, do some work with them. Yeah, cool. I'm in, and they're going to pay me even better. For a while, I was like, man, I'll do this for free. I don't need payment for it. I think though, if I didn't realize at the time, like in my old career, I worked for a CNC machine company. We did medical device implants, so bones, pins, screws, rods. I don't remember if we talked about that last time. But while I worked there, Extreme Ownership came out, and I read it. I knew JP at the time. We weren't super close. I had no idea of their connection, but I heard him on Rogan. I got the book. I read it. And a lot of the principles in there really helped me personally. So my second shift, we had a book club. My boss wouldn't let me do a official training, so I was bummed, but then he was like, but I'll let you do a book club. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So all the departments, we went through it just chapter by chapter. So I was pretty familiar with it leading up to that. And I knew the value it added to me. I went into it just trying to learn professionally in a work environment, but I quickly realized all the impacts it can have on your relationships at home, your relationship with friends, coworkers, everything. It's across the board. So it's really a manual for your life. So fast forward to when I got the chance to work for him, I just wanted to hang out and see him, do some work. As it started building, I started seeing the value it would bring to people at these events. And this is before I got on the FTX. This is just at like their speaking events. I could see the value it was bringing, and kind of my trajectory, even with wanting to open my gyms, was, hey, if I can work for myself, not be punching a clock, which everybody knows if you work for yourself, like the clock is 24/7. Like you don't need to punch a clock because it doesn't stop. But I'm not punching a clock. I'm making money, but whatever I'm doing is helping people. That kind of lined up with my goal in starting that. And then I started applying that. Well, if I can find time to go do these events with Echelon Front, I'm still scratching that itch, helping people, building up their lives. And then as it grew, I'm just selling merchandise. I know some of the principles in the book. People want a shirt. Cool. I got a shirt for you. But it's the interactions behind the scenes as you're setting up for that. You're getting to sit in on all this, in my opinion, world-class training and teaching and stuff, that it starts building up more. And then as I got asked to come just be a role player on the FTX team, I got to see it firsthand, like in a stress-tested environment. That's why I think the FTX is the best, because we'll have people go through all of these workshops with their company, or they'll come to a muster or whatever, any type of training thing, and they'll plug them into the FTX, which is, we're putting stress on you. And you quickly see how people react, whether they know the principles or not. And that's really when I was like, man, I want to do as much as I can, because I would see people at an event halfway through the day realize these problems they had in their lives, whether working or home, and like people in tears, like, and it's legit. They're coming face to face with the things that have gotten in the way, and it's themselves
and things that are holding them back.
Yeah. In all kind of working personal relationships, and just the value that would bring to people. And I would see it every time I would go. And that's when it really started clicking with me, like, hey, the most I can do with this, I want to take it as far as they'll let me. And the goal was, hey, if there's something you need me to do, I'll do it. And it just...
So you were volunteering your services?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
With no other intention other than bettering yourself and trying to be in these rooms and learn more.
Yeah.
Like whatever that took.
Whatever it took.
So you didn't just go in there going like, oh man, I got to meet Jocko and Leif and JP and I. Like, I mean, I know y'all were friends, but like you weren't as close, I don't think, then starting out as.
Yeah. I mean, we were.
No, I mean,
we were fairly close leaving Memphis. 2018 is the first event that I got to volunteer at, and it was here local in Dallas. And we were pretty tight then. 2018 on is when we've really
grown and developed,
started to like really be close. And it was, you know, and he's humble. All those guys are so humble. But I remember when he knew I would want to meet Jocko, but again, it wasn't. I'm not the type to be like, oh man, I got to meet Jocko. Like I got to meet Leif. Like it was nothing.
I think that's really important for people because yes, I mean, you and I, either one of us would be lying saying like you didn't want to do it, but it wasn't the main goal.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't like I want to be Jocko's best friend. No. Or, you know, like I want to work directly for Jocko.
Yeah. Like nothing like that.
Especially when you're talking about these type of guys that are putting on these type of leadership and growth programs and stuff like that. Like you and I were joking about this just the other day. I mean, I think I told you, I mean, this is exactly how I feel about this. And it's, you know, it kind of sparked it with me because I was all these weeks out. We've been using a new program to create shorts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff like that. And one of the ones I went and did was with Redmond.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said to me, you know, was like, hey man, like, you know, honestly, like it's really weird how people try to reach out to you and like want to be your friend and like just weird things like that people do trying to make connections and stuff. And it's like not necessarily always the right way and stuff. He's like, honestly, man, he's like, if you'd have direct messaged me or any of that, I mean, I might have responded, but he's like, you came to my event. Mm-hmm. To where I got to spend time with you. I got to get to know the person you are and all of these things. Otherwise, we would still be way back here.
Right.
You know, like you don't just come in and like instantly, and he's like, and like getting into my circle is not easy.
Yeah.
You know, like these people speak on stages in front of thousands of people and are all over the world constantly.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I told you, I was like, I was really impressed with how you've grown these relationships. And I know it's something to a certain degree you're a little, I don't want to say uncomfortable talking about, but like you're very protective of like those in your circle. I mean, in every right you should be like, but I think a lot of people, and I just think this is a good example because it's so, I don't want to hear me use the word extreme. It is extreme because we're talking about working with, getting to know, and building relationships with some of the most elite operators in the world.
Right.
And I mean, your list of that is, dude, huge. And I've always told you, like, dude, like, I'm super proud of you and, like, really respect how you've done that and built those relationships. Because, like, not those guys don't just let anybody into their circle. Business or not, man. Right, like, it's not like... It's almost like you got to go through buds, you know, like, or whatever their thing was. Like, you know, you got to earn it, man. And like, you got to be real and have those intentions. And it's got to be real clear.
Right. That intent right there. Intent has a smell. And people know, like they know what you're sniffing around for. If you're just looking out for you, that's quickly apparent in all your relationships, whether it's somebody high level or just anybody. Like, you can usually sniff that out pretty quick. I think the higher levels you go, the easier it is for them to sniff it out. But your intent has a smell. So whatever your objective is with it, it's going to be apparent whether you think you're being slick about it or not. Yeah. And I always just try to approach it real humble because these are people I deeply respect and have I've learned a lot from, and just a deep-seated respect for. That's the biggest thing. Like,
and I think putting yourself in those situations. You know, I've talked about this before. When I bombed at at talking in public or speaking in public, I had my solution to that was, all right, I got to find something that's going to make me better at this.
Right.
Just so happened that like I like special warfare stuff. I'm into that thing, you know, like that's my cup of tea. So when I saw Redmond's deal, honestly, like I had read one of his books. I was just following him loosely on Instagram. Like I didn't know Jason Redmond. I didn't even know his whole story other than what I'd read in the one book right. at that time. And I was just like, you know, shit. If I pick this dude, there's no way for the amount of respect I have for these guys that because and I don't want to make this sound like it was not expensive. I mean, it was. I mean, there was airfare, hotels, the course,
right,
food and drink while you're there. I mean, like, it's not super cheap to do, but like I had put back money aside to like help myself and to grow in that realm for me personally.
Right. That was your goal.
And it wasn't a lot of money, but I didn't want to get to a place where I would be like, man, I've done all this. That ain't really what I'm trying to do or whatever. I don't feel like doing that. I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah.
I knew I wouldn't quit on a Navy SEAL that right. I really respected.
Right.
And want to have to live with that like, dude, you quit.
Yeah.
You rang the bell on a speaking thing.
Right.
Like, this dude's been shot in the face. Like, he served our country for like 17, 18 years, whatever it was. Like, he's done the most elite, crazy shit in the world.
And you can't go.
And I can't get through this 3-day speaking thing with him.
Right.
Like, so like,
which doesn't mean it was easy.
No. But like, that's literally why I chose him.
Right.
But at the same time, and even him and I had this conversation before, like Ray Kashkar, you know, like, Ray is fucking intense, man. I don't know if you've got to be around him.
I've never met him. I've seen his stuff, though.
He's intense, man. And I was like, that might be, and I've met him in person. I'm like, that might be a little much for me. If Ray was doing a speaking thing, I don't know if that's the one I want to sign up for. Now, if I just want to go like really learn some shit and get my ass kicked and like physically and really push my limits, and I wasn't 45 and thought I was still 25, I would probably go do that, you know? But like, I chose that because of that. But I think people get this fear or they don't know how to approach some of these situations, and they want those kind of relationships. They want to be in those rooms. They want to have that conversation. But everybody lives and dies on communicating via social media or their cell phone. And it's not picking up the phone and having a conversation. Right. It's a text message, an email, and the social media shit.
Yeah, hoping you're going to pop up in there.
How do you plan to build a real relationship with them and to network and really get anywhere?
Right.
You know, like, put yourself out there, but like, have the right intentions.
Yeah. What your intentions
that's something
are.
You can really like attest to. Like, I mean, you've done that. Like, you have your own business. But yet, this was still something that was fulfilling another need or a hobby or an interest that you had in personal growth.
Yeah.
So you found that thing, and then you went into it just being like completely transparent and open of like, hey, whatever. I mean, I don't care if I'm the guy handing out the T-shirts.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm swag guy, whatever. Like, I just want to be around this event. And if this lowers my expenses or whatever because I still get to attend and do all these things, and go there. And it's turned into like a whole nother career for you.
Yeah, 100%.
And multiple other businesses. Right. Like, I mean, like, I don't know how you keep up with all this shit. It's insane.
One of the laws of combat, decentralized command. Mm-hmm. You got to have the right people.
Yeah, for sure. So you've worked closely now with these guys like Jocko and Leif and JP at Echelon Front and doing the FTXs. What do you think has been like the biggest like leadership teachings that you've either witnessed or experienced with them that have influenced your approach to business and life?
Most influenced my approach. So I think the relationships are key, and I think as much as you hear about it, it's real easy to let your ego get involved in how you respond to certain situations. So I think for me personally, it's making sure I subordinate that ego to the point that I can actually build relationships with clients. And so at my kickboxing gym, I'm not there as much. So that's had to shift for me as I'm doing other things. Just trusting my people that are there to do this and giving them the tools they need to succeed, to keep their relationships in the business. And I think it applies across the board. It doesn't just have to be fitness. It's anything, but that's the key to any of that. I think if your client, whatever you want to call it, feels like it's a good relationship, they're going to continue to be there. The caveat to that is you're not playing mind games. Like, it's not, I'm going to do this to feel like it's back to the intent has a smell. Like, you're doing these things for the right reasons because that's the way you operate things. And in a way, it helps you stay true to yourself and the whole reason for starting whatever venture you're starting. So I think mine has shifted as I've learned being able to be on all these training things and events and how to pour into my people, but also letting them run. So I think as you start, micromanagement's never a good thing, but when you got I'm not going to say never, but when you got a brand new person, you got to keep their box kind of limited. And as they start to find their way and you show them the way, you start opening that box up. And it can be scary because this is something you've built and now you're letting other people run with it, but that's just the way. They're the people that are in there doing the day-to-day stuff, and you've got to trust them. And if they're not performing, you have to get them up to speed. So that the relationship swaps from the day-to-day in the gym with the client to the relationship with the people working for you. And you have to pour into that. For me, that's been the biggest shift that I've had to do as we've done more trips. I think, I want to say we did 28 FTXs last year. I could be wrong on that. I think I just posted something.
I mean, there's at least 30 shots of your feet on airplanes trying to keep up with JP.
It's swapped to a Sprinter van now, though. Yeah. So, but that being said, I mean, 28 FTXs, 3 musters, 2 roll calls. That's 33 events in 52 weeks that I was at. So when I'm gone, it's up to the people that I trust with the business and giving them the ownership. So they're making it their own. That's what makes it work. So finding that way to build and foster that relationship with your people, that's what builds the team, in my opinion.
So you and I are both big fans of the book Extreme Ownership, and thank you again. That's still one of like my favorite prized possessions in my house. My signed copy, like that is absolutely awesome. So there's a lot of principles in Extreme Ownership, and if you guys haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. I mean, there's not many books that I would put above that, but so much of it can be applied in so many areas of your life. Can you maybe give us an example of one of the principles in Extreme Ownership that really has impacted either your business or your family?
So the guy that runs the FTX, the director of the FTX, his name's Cody Gandy, former Marine.
The guy that loves you as a photographer, from what I hear.
No, that's Matt Hasby. That's Matt Hasby. Yeah, he's great. Cody was actually just on Jocko's podcast that released this week too. So it's really cool getting to hear 2 people I know back to back and share their stories. It's just awesome. But Cody presents things in a way that I think really connects with people. And one of the biggest things we see at the FTX is detachment. And we always say detachment is a superpower. So for me, it's in a personal way. So it's a lot easier for me to apply these principles to a business or a working relationship. But a lot of times with people at home, your closest friends, and then your direct family, they know you the best. You know them the best. It's real easy to to get complacent with that. So I think detachment has been the biggest one for me. So like I've got kids, I've got a wife, things are always dynamic. There's, when I'm home, there's still no routine. So you do it the best you can, but I think being able to adapt, part of that is detachment. Before something comes up that's going to cause a problem, if you step back and detach from the situation and actually look at it and can gain some perspective, I think that really helps in that relationship. Because how many times, like, you make an emotional decision, it's usually not a good decision, right? Good or bad, whether you're sad, whether you're mad, whatever. You're emotionally involved in this thing. Take a breath, step back, look around. And I think the FTX, again, I'm pumping that because it works so well. It's really not a tactical thing, but people have laser taggers with optics on them. So when they're just staring down their optic, shooting at the enemy, which is me, all you can see is this little bitty circle, and you can't see anything else going around. And it's real easy to get sucked in on whatever this problem is or whatever this emotional decision is. But if you put the gun down and look back, you can see everything. And I think that translates a lot to my home life when you're dealing with kids or you're dealing with, your wife that's been home with them for 2 weeks straight and, things got to get done. It's real easy to react emotionally. And I think being able to detach and actually take a breath before you respond to things emotionally, that's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, like I told you earlier, I did a road trip to OKC and back today, so I got to catch up on a lot of podcasts that I've been behind on, but I do want to give you guys a little bit of a shout out over at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu too, because I really enjoyed listening to you guys talk on this last episode and I'll be there the 29th? Yeah, 29th. It's a Wednesday.
Oh, okay. For the
discipleship.
Okay, I'll be there too.
You guys are going to do it at Double Five.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that because you guys were talking about a book and the practices you're going to do. And, faith-based stuff at times can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially if you've ever had a bad experience or anything like that. But, man, you guys make me feel like I'm missing out on something all the time. And I know I am, to a certain degree because of, my past baggage and stuff with all that. But you guys were talking about things, man. Like, you guys were going through these, 10 things with your wife.
Yeah.
And listening to all of you guys and go, man, I'm trying to remember exactly what the one was, but it was something along the lines of, and my wife's going to chime in any minute now, I guarantee it, and be commenting on this. But it's really listening to them.
Yeah.
And but you guys took it further in talking about it from it's innate in man's nature to want to solve the problem,
right,
help them. And that's not always what's needed.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's I think there's, and maybe you can speak to this a little more between Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu and Echelon Front and the FTXs. There's so many things, even when you're doing that kind of stuff and really trying to get better as an individual, but then there's a whole nother application when it comes to taking that home to your family.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where you have a really good blend between Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu and the Echelon Front type stuff that you do, that you get to see it from in the field, business, personal. But then you guys, I think Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu brings that back around and kind of brings that back down to the home front too.
Yeah, and I think anybody in any kind of relationship, if you're a guy, it's real easy to, when your wife, girlfriend, whatever, starts coming to you with problems, you're like, well, you just need to do this, 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 and this, this.
Or you're so worn out from your own problems.
Right, yeah. And you're like, well, this is easy to me. I can see it, fix it. And that's not always what they need. I think that goes back to the relationship you have. You're building relationships with all these business contacts and whatever, but you have to build your relationship with your spouse or even, I mean, this could apply to your close friend circle. Like if you came to me and you're like, man, I'm having these problems, and I just immediately just start trying to fix it. That may not be what you're looking for in that moment. You may just need to like, hey, let me air this out a minute.
Yeah.
And I think as your relationship grows, you start tuning into that a little bit more and being more aware. And that applies to the detachment. Like I'm not just focused on this problem.
That's so much easier too with like your friends and stuff. Like you get to your wife easier. And it's like, man, like I thought you just wanted me to like, for whatever reason, how are we so inept at like picking up on that when it's just like, you know, like I can literally think about this just the other day. And like my wife was like, poor you, I've been home with the dog all day and here I am just rambling your ear off and I know you just dealt with whatever today. I'm like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, but like at that point in time, like I totally picked up on it. Like she wasn't wanting to have a debate or, you know, me to answer anything necessarily. She just wanted to talk.
Right.
And just to tell me about her day and the things that have happened. But like, it's so crazy how like some days that doesn't register. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you
get so focused on what you're doing
or what her issue is.
Yeah.
Rather than what she's taking issue with, that you can't even like really listen and like get past that.
Yeah.
And that causes a whole other world of problems.
Which is, it's the person that's closest to you.
Yeah.
And it's like you got blinders on and you can't see it. Yeah. It happens often. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen to me. I mean, the flip side of that, it's funny when you think about it. Cody says this too. Like my wife, when I go on a FTX trip or anything Echelon Front related, typically when I come back, I'm pretty like dialed in because like I'm taking notes at this. I'm constantly trying to improve myself, apply these principles. So she sees the value in it. And I say that because she's never read the book. I don't know if she'll ever read the book. She's met these people. She respects them. She knows what it can bring. She's never read the book.
And it's not her cup of tea.
It's not like you could come home and be like, hey, read this.
Yeah. This will change your life.
Yeah. That's not how that thing works.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to the relationship you have. And a lot of the things transfer, just like you said, you know, you come home and your wife just wants to talk to you. Which if you really detach and you come home from a hard day and your wife wants to talk to you, like that's probably a good thing. I mean, I don't know. Like that really makes it sound super easy. Cause I know if I get home from a day and I've had a lot of stuff going on, I got a lot of stuff to do and I'm planning, I'm leaving February 16th and we're doing an FTX and then we're doing the muster and then another FTX. So I'm planning for 3 trips and I got to get all the logistics. I got to get all the guys here and my wife just wants to talk. It's not as easy as it sounds, but on a surface level, if you really back out, you're like, my wife wants to talk to me. Yeah. It's a simple thing. Yeah. We get in our own ways.
Absolutely.
I think. And they do too. I mean,
it's just sharing a problem and you take the problem personally because you've already been dealing with God knows what other problems throughout the day. And it's like,
and then the worst thing,
it's not that big of a deal. But
I think that's the worst thing. And that's your ego talking. You're like, you're dealing with this. Well, I'm dealing with this, and this. And it's like, man, who cares? Like, that's your ego. Like, you don't know problems.
You hear that in the back of your head. You do.
It'll creep in on you quick, real natural. And you really have to like work to keep that beat down.
Yeah. So how do you, with all of this going on and managing all these aspects of your life, how do you maintain the discipline to get all these things done, man, with the multiple businesses, the family, the balance, friends, all of that stuff? Like, what do you think really helps you and how do you, what's a day look like where you're like really, Josh is on point and like, you're touching on all these things?
I think constant, and maybe not constant, you don't want to overdo it, but having check-ins. So, and my days just, my wife and I joke about it all the time. Like people always like, what time do you normally get up in the morning? Well, it depends on where I'm at, what I'm doing, you know? So if we're on FTX,
it better be by 4 a.m. I'm just
if I'm on FTX, it's 3:30 or 4 in the morning. If I'm at a muster, yes, typically at that time. If I'm, you know, at home, but I'm going to the gym, it's typically around 7, like, cause I'm not a 4:30 a.m. workout guy. So I think it just depends on what's going on, but having those touch points with your team and what you're doing. So, with Echelon Front, we have, as you can imagine, with most of the guys being in the military, previously in the military, we have a lot of SOPs, and those are important, I think, in your business life, but also in your day-to-day life. So I live by the calendar on my phone. I live by my notebook that I keep, and then schedules. So you have to be intentional with what you're doing. So if I'm in town, like I've been in town for pretty much all of January, and we're going to record Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I know every Monday we're going to try to get in there while I'm in town to get those out. So I block that part off. If I have calls scheduled, I'll plan my day around whatever calls for EF I have, which again, the other guys have infinitely more than the small amount I have. But I still do have to plan around those. And as we're getting closer to an event, I have to start contacting the guys that we're going to use for the FTX team. I have to get their travel looked up. I have to get their lodging looked up. I have to start prepping the gear, all these things. So really you can't just fly into it and be like, well, I'll get this done this day. You have to set goals and then achieve them. And then also while I'm in town, I like to go into my gym. So I'm getting that FaceTime with the team that's there. I mean, I love those guys. So we're friends. So it's good to see them, but also like we're getting that FaceTime together while I'm in town. And I just plug that in around what I'm planning for this trip, what I'm doing for Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. We have a guy that's working for us on the path for our t-shirt printing. I'm making sure he has the tools needed to do the next jobs that we're printing. When there's extra time, I'm scheduling that time to get in there. So this calendar stays booked, but I think you have to plan it out and then execute on it. It can't be like, I'm going to try to get this done this day. I'm going to try to get this done this day. When there's too many things pulling at you, you're never going to get it done. So
just like, don't call Josh and say, hey, what do I need to put in to like make sure you get credit for me getting my FTX ticket or my trip to Pursuit? Because he will straight up leave you on the sidelines.
And things get dropped. I should have just pointed you to Isaac for Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, and I should have.
I mean, I heard you dumped all that today on Isaac. That you're like, yeah, you could hit any one of us up, but I'm just gonna forward you to Isaac. I'm surprised Isaac didn't like choke you out on that episode.
But see, he knows that's part of the thing. He wishes he could choke me out too, but.
Ooh, Isaac, God, there's one time I hope you're listening to this, and I know you're not.
I'll make sure and cut this clip and send it to him.
I'll make sure we get this clip to you, Isaac.
I'm a glutton for good punishment, so if he wants to beat me down, like I'm going to take it. But to your point, that's right. There are things that fall through the cracks. Or I remember we talked about, was it the FTX that we were talking about?
Yeah, it was the one in October that was here in Dallas.
Oh, that was the muster.
You know, in all fair, like, yeah, the muster. And in all fairness, too, like, and I'm sure you get asked this kind of stuff all the time. And, like, I think it was just, like, early on in our relationship when I asked you about it. And it may have been perceived wrong that, like, you thought I was, like, wanting a hookup.
No.
That's even better to hear. Yeah. But, like, that's the way I just kind of, like, looked at it. I was like, man, maybe he thought I was, like, wanting the hookup on this. I was like, no, I knew you were becoming a bigger and bigger part of it. I wanted to make sure if there's a certain code I need to put in or if there's a certain person I need to go through so that you got credit for me and whoever else wanted to come that like, hey, like we're Josh's guys. We're here supporting. Like we're Josh's dudes.
And that was just a ball dropped on my part. So, and there's, but this is a normal thing, I think, that's going to happen in your day-to-day life. You try your best to plan for it. but then you just got to get back after it. Like, we got to connect. Like, hey man, the next one is in San Diego. Do you want to go to San Diego or?
I don't know. I got San Diego in me right now, but But Norm, I mean, you're in a Walmart parking lot at 4 a.m.
Well,
those do happen from time to time.
But yeah, so I think there's a level where you have to know your bandwidth, and it's easy for things to fall off. Like I would say you and I are pretty close friends now. Mm-hmm. And it's not a knock on anybody that's not in those closer circles, but the farther you get out from it, the easier it is to do that. So I just say that because you have to be diligent about it. But even on the inner ones, I'm just tying this all back to like family. So all that stuff I said I was doing, I didn't mention my family. In that schedule, you have to build that family time. You have to build, if the relationships that are important to you, you're going to prioritize them. So we planned last week to do this podcast on Thursday, and then me and my wife and you and your wife to go out on Saturday. The podcast got snowed out because the place closed, and I had sick kids. But if that's priority, you got to get that back on the schedule. And I say all that to be like, I'm doing all these things, but you have to prioritize what's important to you, your close relationship, your family as well. Yeah. Because if that falls apart, what's the point of doing it? You know? And that's an important thing to me. I think I talked about that a little bit the last time I was here, but the way that I'm able to be gone for 2 weeks at a time. And again, in the grand scheme of the people that are instructors at Echelon Front, I travel a minor amount. These guys are just getting after it nonstop, and keeping up with their schedules. It's crazy, and it's an awesome thing to see with the amount of professionalism and care that they do it. So even at my little sliver of a level, but I know I've got to make sure and prioritize the relationships I want to cultivate at home and the other interests I have. So like my business is important to me, obviously. When I'm home, it's not like I'm not going to go see the team at the gym, or I'm not going to spend time with my family. So I may not put on my calendar like, hey, talk to your kids, but it's planning things around. So typically Thursday nights I go to Jiu-Jitsu with my kids. But I knew this was on the books, so we went Tuesday night. So you can adapt, but you have to keep those main things in there. And I think that's the key in building those relationships to let you flourish with the other ones.
That's a very good point. Like, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to adapt to what life throws at you, because
you can't just write down a list of things and be like, I'm going to get these done and everything's going to go perfectly smoothly. I mean,
that doesn't happen for anybody
ever. And if you got kids, it definitely doesn't happen. So
I mean, I was just grateful when you sent me the message and were like, we're not going to be able to make it. I've got puking kids everywhere. And I'm like, you have fun with that, bro.
You keep that.
Thank you.
You keep that.
We can connect whenever. Like, you keep that over at the Straussberger house. Like, I don't want any part of that. I've been listening to JP cough and hack on his podcast, and I know you guys have been hanging out. And I was like, you got puking kids at home. I've got guys at work that are in the hospital and out and all this other stuff.
I don't need that in my life.
That's the last thing I want right now. Well, we've mentioned this a little bit in here, and I know this is important to you as well as me, and I think that's kind of what have led both of us down the path we've gone down to a certain degree, is we're both trying to grow, trying to get better, trying to be better at things we suck at. And I think we both put ourselves in a lot of those situations. That word mentor just gets thrown out so much. And people feel like, if you read enough books, it's going to be like, I got to find my mentor. I got to find that person. And people don't know how to go about doing that. And I think you've kind of like stepped to the next level to a certain degree outside of your household and everything, to where you have, I think, you have found some mentors. You've put yourself into situations to build relationships that have turned into you having some great mentors. So maybe you can speak on that a little bit. And then also how you've grown, because I'm sure now you're getting thrown into between pursuit and some of these other things to being a mentor to others.
Yeah. And that was the 2-part question. For me personally, like, I don't know if I would consider myself a mentor, but there is a level of responsibility, I think, like when you're talking about pursuit, when we go back and serve and we're helping these guys.
Well, I think also with Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Even with
definitely people.
Because I'll have people, and that's a great thing, in my opinion, about social media is people that listen to that podcast. And I've got to meet a lot of them. And then there's some of them I haven't met yet, but we've connected on Instagram. Yeah. And it's the positive, the encouragement, people just reaching out, people commenting on our YouTube that we connect with. The impact it has, honestly, it's something that you don't think about. Like we're like, yeah, we're going to start a podcast. We feel we need to do this. And our goal is to like get this information out mainly to help people. Again, same thing. Our intention is to help people get better. And whether that's with Jiu-Jitsu, it's spiritually. We want to encourage them with physically with Jiu-Jitsu, obviously. But our main thing, it is a Christian ministry, so it's a spiritual thing as well. But I wouldn't say, I can't speak for the other guys, but in the back of my mind, it was never like, we're going to put this out there and, people are actually going to reach back out and tell us different ways we've helped them. I wasn't prepared for that. So the first couple times it happened, it's like, man, you said this thing on the podcast that really helped me so much. It's super humbling, but then also there's that level of, oh, there's weight to this, and
because you're dealing with people spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
At that point, it's not just business or jiu-jitsu. You now, because of y'all's platforms and your approaches, you're dealing with the spirituality component and personally.
Yeah.
And because it also's got to. I mean, and I don't know the right way to ask this, but I think you'll get what I'm saying. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. But, like, we all know we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And, like, we have our baggage and our shit, too, and things that we've messed up in life. And to see that whatever you said or did helped somebody, but yet in the back of your mind as a man, you're kind of like, yeah, well, man, I almost feel uncomfortable about this because, like, if you only knew what I've gone through, like, you think this is bad, like, that was just one little like piece of it. And yeah, like I did find this out the hard way and learned this, and maybe I shared that, or maybe this was like that thing that like, through faith or whatever that like had a transition for you. And now you've shared that, but now that person is looking to you for more spiritual or emotional guidance. And like, that's gotta be a weird, tricky balance.
It is. And I think, one thing, and I've learned this through extreme ownership, is if you don't have the answer, like they're gonna know if you don't have the answer. So like you're not doing
that has a smell too.
Yeah, 100% has a smell. And what are you doing that for? Like if you want to help them and you really don't know the answer to their question, like I think that's a level also too with Christianity in general. Christians are just people, and I think it's real easy for people to fall into how they're living now and forgetting about the things they've gone through, the thing they've done and continue to do, because like you said, none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And finding peace with that as you move forward to help other people. So, I don't know the Bible in the way that Lucas knows it on our podcast, or even Isaac, and I would just say even JP. I think I can find some answers in the Bible, but the point of that is if somebody has a question that I don't have an answer for, I'm just going to be honest, be like, hey man, I don't know, but I'm going to find that out and I'm going to get back to you.
Or, hey, you should really talk to Lucas about this.
Or if if their experience doesn't completely match up with mine, but it matches up with somebody I know, hey, talk to this guy. Yeah. He's been through this. He knows.
Yeah. You and Isaac or whoever would really be able to like hash this out and like really get some deep perspective on it.
And I think there's a level too of with what we're doing with the ministry, like it's real easy to remember. I remember when I wasn't in church or anything spiritual, because all those people are hypocrites, man, and like all this stuff. And that is so true of so many people.
Well, until sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Like, I think until you can find forgiveness for yourself in certain things and find some humbleness there, that can be hard in a lot of aspects of life.
Yeah. Well, and
just realizing, like, hey, I'm not perfect. Like, man, I have fucked up so bad, or I've done X, Y, Z, and it's like, hey, you don't have to live with that. Like, you're not the same person you were yesterday, today. As long as you're not repeating the same mistakes and you're continuing to move forward, I think like that. Yeah, you have to find some humbleness and some.
And a lot of Christians get tied up in that because they forget and they want to come at people a certain way. And I think that's a mistake. Now, their intentions may be good, but then you see the hypocrisy in them, and it's real easy to be like, man, they're telling me this stuff, but they're doing all this stuff. It's real easy to counter judge them, I guess, which is not beneficial to anything either. I think back to the intent has the smell. Like, the people that are actually connecting with you, that care about you, like, you're going to be able to tell. Yeah. And they should have no trouble telling you, like, hey man, I don't have it all figured out either. Yeah. But here's some biblical advice or some spiritual advice on what to do with this.
Here's what I did.
And here's what I did. And this is why. And I think bringing that full circle too, as far as the mentorship, like Isaac and I were talking today at lunch, and it's real easy to look at myself now compared to last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and then even back into the darker past. And people want to ask you for advice or just reach out and tell their story. And there are things on the daily that people just struggle with. Just because you get things taken care of doesn't mean you're never going to struggle again. It's a daily struggle. And I think your Christianity, your relationship with Christ, it's work. Anything worth having, though, requires the work. And for me, like when people reach out and ask stuff, in the back of my mind, there's that like, oh, they're asking about this, but you messed up on that same thing like a week ago. But that's where you drop the ego. Like it's not me like, oh, I'm better than you and I'm your mentor, so I'm up here and I'm going to give you that. No, this is person to person. It's friend to friend. Like, hey man, that thing, I was dealing with something like that 4 days ago. Yeah. And you're not giving anybody like a false.
Here's what I tried, man. I mean, maybe this will work for you.
And I talked to these guys and they showed me this. And to me, that's how, especially on that personal level of mentorship, that's where it's most important, I think.
I agree with that.
As far as personal growth and stuff like that, I've got all these great guys around me. So it's a wealth of knowledge. And then the things I get to do, I get to literally every work trip, I'm taking notes, and just constantly trying to grow from that. And it's a blessing. So I know not everybody has the benefit that I do of that, but a lot of this stuff, man, is just out there. If you have,
you don't have to go to 30 FTXs or musters. No. Like, go to one. Like, sign up for the one that's in your area. Go. If that's something that interests you. If not, fine.
Yeah. Whatever it is. If it's Jiu-Jitsu, it's free. Come see it. If it's a spiritual thing, if it's none of the things I'm involved with, but it's something that interests you, you can find the knowledge from someone somewhere. And even if you don't have a direct relationship, I think you can have a mentor from that, if the principles are sound in whatever it is in that you're wanting. And there's no excuse nowadays with YouTube University. There's nothing you can't teach yourself. Now there's a black hole in there of things on YouTube and social media, but you can get the information you want if you put in the effort to find it.
So you're going to tell everybody about your famous Navy SEAL pink drink, or?
Yeah. So this is Pink Drink 2.0, right?
Yeah, we're at 2.0.
So what was that event we were at? Was that the
Man, I don't even remember. You came up for an event here.
It was like a private event.
It was a private event. I forget who was here speaking or doing their thing, but you came up, and my buddy Jacob, that's the manager up here, he decided to give us pink drinks.
Pink drinks, yeah.
And we proudly, because they were good as shit.
They were delicious.
Yeah.
And
I like adult slushies and stuff like that. Like, I'm not afraid to drink anything fruity. If it tastes good, it tastes good. Like, I'm down.
When it tastes like juice, I mean, I'm not going to be mad at it. I'm secure enough. Yeah. But I remember we were sitting basically front row for what this event was. And there was pictures too. And, so we were just sipping our pink drinks. And then somebody, was it on the podcast like the next day after, they were talking about your Navy SEAL buddy, which I am not. Yeah. But we're just, it's
so funny.
It's me and Garrett just sipping some pink drinks. So I show up today and we have pink drink 2.0. So
I was hanging out at Trees, and my buddy Clint that owns Trees was drinking a pink drink. And Clint's a really big dude, like manly man, owns a rock venue, like, I mean, it's fucking Trees. Like, that's iconic in Deep Ellum. Like, and I'm watching this big dude drink a pink drink, and me and my buddy Don were giving him a hard time. He's like, gotta try it. And lo and behold, it is just sugar-free Red Bull watermelon flavor and vodka. Also, and it's absolutely amazing.
It's like juice, and it wasn't Kool-Aid. Until we started. He was like, oh, that's Red Bull, by the way. So if we're feeling a little amped, it's the Red Bull talking.
Yeah, so. Definitely. And we don't have to Jocko, if your watermelon starts tasting like this, like, you'll have me fully converted. But the watermelon one's a little lacking. But I heard there's a lot of new ones coming out in other supplement lines, which I'm excited about, because like Jocko protein is the only protein I take. If you guys have not mixed chocolate and banana Jocko fuel yet, protein, you're really missing out, because that is dessert.
The way to go, it's dessert. If you like the ready to drink premix ones, the coffee one, sweet cream cold brew,
I have not had that yet.
So I'll hook you up. There's caffeine in it. It's legit coffee. So it's like 95 milligrams of caffeine, and it's like a cold coffee protein mix. It's incredible.
All right. I'm down to try that one.
Yeah. So I'm with it. I like all the flavors, but there are those that I like better than others.
Yeah.
Happily will drink a watermelon, but in my
lemonade one is
yeah, that's up on my list.
That's a top one. The blue one.
So sour apple, and pineapple coconut are my two favorites.
Oh, I haven't had pineapple.
They're pretty much tied, and then pink lemonade's right after it. I heard though that pineapple coconut's going away. I don't know. Maybe not everybody shares my palate, but I think they're taking it out at some point this year.
I'm gonna have to try that one. I've not ever seen that one. So
yeah, it used to be called Tropic Thunder, like the movie.
Nice. I like that even more now.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So, and then as far as what we're smoking, because I do want to get to that, because I'll forget and you guys will roast me in the comments, but we are both smoking the Patoro Vintage right now. And Biz, what are you smoking on over there?
You have me laced with the, I can't pronounce this, is it the Decian?
The Decian.
The Decian from
Accomplice. The Accomplice.
Brown paper bag cigar.
Yeah, that's a solid cigar. I haven't smoked one of those in a long time. But
I said the first quarter of it tastes like, remember you used to make book covers with the grocery bags?
Yeah.
It tastes like
God, I haven't thought about that in a long time.
That's gone, it's a beautiful cigar.
Okay.
So I just need to cut off the front of it and get to the business.
This has been amazing start to finish. So a big fan. And again, I show up and he brings out what I need. So
I mean,
if he tells me it's good, it's good, and he hasn't missed
yet.
You're
pretty easy. You stay kind of in my palate range, so like you're pretty easy to get cigars for.
Good.
Well, let's go back to this one, because I think this is a good one for maybe you to like kind of like tell people about, because we get a lot of people that want to start their own thing, be an entrepreneur. So relocating to Dallas from Memphis I know with a family had to be a really big move for you. I mean, that's for a first move to open up your gym. That's pretty huge. So what were some of the challenges you faced starting your business in a new city, coming to a new city where you didn't know anybody really for the most part?
Yeah.
And, you know, you're bringing your family here. So, like, what were some of the challenges you faced and how did you overcome those?
So first challenge was we moved here in early July, but the gym wasn't open and I'm still working my other job in Memphis. So I moved my family here. So the first challenge obviously was literally I would drive from Memphis to Dallas when I would get off work. I'd be here Saturday, Sunday, and then I'd drive back Monday.
God, that drive sucks horribly.
Yeah, it's not great. So it was probably 6 weeks of that. So that was the first challenge, was just dropping them here, and then I gotta go to work, and it was intense. It went fast. It went faster than I thought. But yeah, that took getting used to. I'm sure for them, I'm sure if you ask them, like, they don't know anybody. They were in school when they were in Memphis. My wife had been wanting to homeschool, so that was her. I was always like, nah. And that was her opportunity to be like, hey, let's try this. We're moving in July. You know, they're leaving all their friends. I've been wanting to try it. Just let me try it. Let me try it for a year. First year, that'll give them time to settle. And I went for it. So not only are we in a place where they don't know anybody, she's doing homeschool for the first time, which honestly that helped, because there were some times I would get time off and I'd come home early, so I didn't have to like share time with them being in school on a Friday or a Thursday if I came early. So it all worked. It was just an adjustment on my end, adjustment on their end. But then once I finally, and my boss was super supportive of me, because that was a nerve-wracking thing to be like, hey, I'm turning in my notice. I would like to work as long as I can, because a lot of places, man, you turn in your notice. Doesn't matter how good you've done. Like, you're lucky if they give you the 2 weeks. They may be like, get gone now. Yeah. And you're going to be replaced in a week. I had a great boss, honestly, to the point where he called me in his office. He asked me what I was planning to do, and we talked through it, and he was very supportive, and he was like, man, that's big. Like, he gave me sound advice. He even cautioned me. He's like, are you sure you want to? Like, this is a big jump off point. Great guy. But ultimately, when I turned in my notice, he was like, you can work here as long as you need to. Like, well, you know, I gave him like, I think I'll be done by this point, because it all depended on the build out of the gym, when we'd be open. Like, I had to balance that. Yeah. And he was like, hey, if you need to work past this point, cool. You know, just keep me posted. So that was a weight off my shoulders. But once I finally did quit and step out, then I was all in. And that was a nerve-wracking part, because I don't know my way around, really. So you have to learn the way around. You're trying to figure out how to run ads. And as you're gearing up towards opening day, you just hope people show up, man. Like, that's the culmination of, oh man, I hope we did this right, because like, we put all this money into equipment. We put all this money into signing this lease. We put, you know, the landlord's built out the space. Everything's ready. We've got people scheduled. They got to show up. So it's learning processes on how to follow up with prospective clients. It's all this stuff. And then, just building it from there. That was the most tense part. And then as we got open and things started happening, it got rolling pretty well. Now, it was a lot of day-to-day stuff. We didn't have any trainers. It was me and my brother. So it was a physical toll after teaching all these classes in a day. And then we're going out and like, all right, we have to prospect and keep getting people to come. And that was a real learning curve, because I think a lot of people have great ideas, and then when they want to act on them, they expect, well, I did all this stuff, now the people are just going to come and pay me. That is not the case. Yeah. At all. Like, you can have the best thing in the world, and if you don't get it out there, they're not just going to suddenly buy it. So that was, as a new business owner, learning the ins and outs of how to do that. That was a learning curve. It went fast because I was so busy. so much, but that was,
man, I'm even looking more forward to meeting Jennifer now. Like, to think about, like, and thank God you started out that way and weren't as involved in all this other stuff that you are now, because to think about her being home and homeschooling all of your kids with you gone.
Yeah.
And no break. Like, she doesn't even get the, hey, from 8 to 3 o'clock, they're going to be in school. I can go to the grocery store. I can take care of these other things I need to for the house. All that goes into running a household and a family with you gone.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, there's no way.
If she hadn't already had that time doing that just as a new business owner, I can only imagine if you had your hand in all these other things.
Yeah, there's no way. And I remember when the first Echelon Front event I did here local was the year we opened, but it was the month before our grand opening. So that's actually the only reason I had time to go do that, was we weren't open yet. And I remember enjoying it, but it was probably another year or two before I did the next one, just because I was so focused on that. So I think there's a level of the right people telling you, like, hey, man, that was the night time, and realizing, hey, place, this is my priority right now. I've got to focus on this. And as it opened up, but you're absolutely right. Like, there's no way beyond that. When we moved here, when I finally moved here, we only had one car. I sold. Yeah. So like we were tight. So like if I was down at the gym, she was just at the house. Anyway. Yeah. So there was grocery delivery. Like, she'd walk to parks and, we got them out. And then when I was home, I made sure, like, hey, go do what you need to do and stuff. But that didn't last that long, but it was still a little something at the front there.
Yeah. And tough, I can imagine. So something you said last time that struck out with me that I took from my notes was, you said that true career fulfillment comes from focusing on the mission, not just the money.
Yeah.
So how does that mindset shape the way you run your gyms, your businesses, and engage with the community you have?
So for me, like, most of the people that work for me, the trainers, and other than my brother and then Sadie, the girl that manages the Denton location for me, I'm not their main source of income, but I want them to be fulfilled with what they're doing and it be a nice supplemental income. But as far as the business goes, if my brother's taken care of, if Sadie's taken care of, that's the goal as far as that goes. But when there's real easy ways to get slimy, I think, especially in the fitness industry, to just get people to sign up and trick them into a contract or whatever. And I think with the trainers knowing the mission of what we're doing, the culture we've built in the gym, it's real easy. Like, we're very transparent. And I think that's important. Like, we want to connect with all of our members that come to Total Fitness Kickboxing, and we want them to get plugged in and we've seen friendships build. I don't know if these people hang out outside of the gym, but like, hey, I'm going to be here at 4:30 tomorrow. Oh yeah, me too. So there's that accountability that organically comes with people in the gym. But when we're signing people up, I don't ever want people to feel like we pressure them. And if we pressured them, we could drive a lot more money. Oh, now you're in a contract. Now you got to keep paying us. We pride ourselves on, like, if this is something that you think it will help and you give us your time and money, we're going to give you the product. And if it's not something you want, like, I'm not going to hound you. I'm not going to browbeat you. I'm going to ask you questions like, is this your goal? Is this what you want to do? Is this in your budget? Cool. But there's no... The money, obviously you have to have the money to run the business, pay the employees, but we've always tried to make it be as affordable and competitive as possible and give people the option, not just, you need to get here and sign up. Like, none of this gimmicky stuff. We don't like that. Like, what you see is what you get with us. Yeah. And I think that adds to the credibility, and it goes back to building a relationship. I don't know how much this matters. So we have an automated system that will send messages to prospects and stuff, but I see them. So if people reply to that, they're getting direct contact with me. So you're direct to the source. And
what was it like to have Bob Duff as a client?
Bob and his wife are two of my favorite people in the world.
That was so funny.
When I saw him on there, I was like, what in the world, Bob?
Yeah, I would have paid money to know that Bob was doing kickboxing.
And
I would have gone just to see Bob do kickboxing.
And he was getting after it, man. So Bob was such a good dude. When we opened Denton, I may have told you this, but when we opened Denton, when all my heavy bags, we had like 36 Muay Thai heavy bags get delivered.
Yeah.
And the truck would stop, and we had like a 1 hour window to unload the truck for the shipping charges and stuff. So it was me. And then Bob was like, yeah, I'll ride up there and help you unload them. So he's just up there. He's just a member. Like, we had a good relationship.
Yeah.
But
Bob's a great guy.
A member from the gym. He's like, yeah, man, I'll roll up there. And we're just unloading heavy bags off this truck into the new gym. Like, that's the type of guy Bob is.
Yeah, Bob's a great dude. We call him the mayor for a reason.
Yeah. That podcast was awesome.
Yeah, Bob's a good dude. So what advice maybe would you give someone wanting to start their own business in a competitive market, and how they can stay focused on the mission over the rewards? Because I know that's a struggle early on in any business.
I think so. You've got to be prepared to put in the work. Again, a lot of people want to start a business, but then they want to have the end result without all the work that's involved with it. And I think that's catastrophic. So you've just got to be prepared. It's not a 9 to 5 when you're trying to get something growing, it's everything you can has to be all in on it. So if you're married, you definitely need to maintain alignment with your spouse and your kids with that, but you got to be prepared to put it all on the line out there. Especially in a competitive market, like in Dallas, anywhere in DFW, even up here in North Dallas, like there's fitness on every corner.
Yeah.
So it's easy to fall into, and it's a competition, but people are going to be attracted to what they're attracted to. So you just have to capture the ones that want to do whatever it is in fitness. And I think that applies to whatever you're trying to open. Like, you've got to find your audience, and you got to be okay with, you definitely got to be okay with people telling you no.
You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I don't care what it is. Like, if I got mad every time I looked at the numbers of followers on this, but like, what I do have is a real solid core, man. Like, my people know who I am, and I know who my people are, and like, that's cool. That'll continue to grow. But like, if you just get hung up on those things and just the numbers or just the money, I think like that's an instant death trap.
Well, and I think that's what is the reason you're starting it. And I'm not vilifying starting a business to make money and be well off. Like, that should be one of your goals, but I don't think it should be your primary goal, depending on what you're doing. Are you adding value to your clients, your customers, or whatever? Like, it should at least be the same level goal.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I'm sure there's some bizarre thing out there where that doesn't apply, but I can't think of it. So I think if you're aligned with your mission and your purpose, and you are driven to succeed, you just better be all in on it. And if you're not, if you don't really have a clear vision or purpose on what you're doing, you should probably wait before you get started and decide if that's really, like, if it's a fly-by-night thing, like, oh, I think I can get rich quick doing this, it's probably not gonna do it. Like,
there's no get rich quick.
Absolutely not.
That does not exist.
No.
Like, anybody selling you that is selling you a load of crap.
100%.
And I think we've I know we've kind of touched on this, but I mean, I still think, just from what you just said, even more so, like, I mean, balancing any business, whether it's your job or your personal business, and family time. I mean, like, I don't have kids, so I don't have to factor that, but I have to factor my wife. You know, you got wife and kids. Like, so How do you maintain staying intentional and being present with your family with this schedule? Like, what kind of things do you do to really balance that and to still give them their time? I mean, I know you kind of gave the example earlier.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to go Thursday. We went Tuesday. But what other things have you had to implement to really balance that? Because I think so many people struggle with that. And I think the term work-life balance is a load of shit.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my personal belief. There is no complete balance. There is what you allocate time for and how you do it. And sometimes you're on point and, you know, sometimes you're not, man. Like, again, you're human. So, I mean, there are times that, like, one suffers and one doesn't, you know, like that's.
And it's easy to drop the ball. Like if you get tied into doing something, and I'm guilty of it.
Or just tired, you know.
Yeah, or man, that's probably, I'm glad you said that. That's probably the easiest one. So you may have a lot of time, but you're just gassed. And that's when you're at your weakest. That's also when you're probably going to lash out at them, or you just
say something stupid.
Something totally stupid, or you're just like, oh man, y'all just let me rest here. You know, like you're wasting the time that you set. So you have to be intentional and you have to be disciplined about it. So I think for me, it's real easy to fall into too. Even when I set that time with the family, I'll find myself like, I may not be scrolling Instagram. I may be replying to emails. I may be, you know, looking at schedules and stuff. So the focus and discipline you do in that time, that's key. And you can plan to mitigate that as much as you can. And then you really just have to stick to it. And sometimes you have to go drastic. Like if there's nothing pressing right now, put your phone in the other room and actually pay attention. And I've had to do that. And sometimes I find myself still falling into it, and you just have to course correct and get right back on.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, man. Like even like, you know, I can think of this personally. It affects me all the time, and I'm not great at it, man. It's something I'm constantly working on to get better at. I admire. I think it's really good how well, at least in my eyes, that you do this. I mean, like, because to be completely honest and transparent on this, like, too, like, I think last week when you called me and said, hey, kids are sick, we're going to have to reschedule this. My first thought was like, well, damn, that sucks. Like, I'm probably not going to see Josh for another month or two. Like, I know they're kind of down into the year as your slower time before you guys ramp back up. I was like, but with all the things you're balancing, like realistically, I was like, well, we'll keep staying in touch, and this probably won't happen for a while. So, I mean, I got super excited that we were able to just go 1 week. And it worked out timing wise for both of us. Right. But like, I didn't have another expectation of like, oh man, fuck Josh. Josh doesn't really care about this. Like, how good of friends really are we? You know, like, was his kid really sick? You know, like people play these games in their heads and do all this stuff. But like, when your intentions are right and you've been building a relationship and networking and communicating and doing all these right things, I mean, I think a lot of it works its way out. It's just, you've got to set those things in motion.
Right. And as that relationship grows, as they see your intentions with anything, it's going to solidify it more. And again, like, it's real easy to blame it on time. Like, me and you are closer than that, but how easy would it be if it's somebody that's further out and you're like, well, my kids were sick, couldn't go, you know, like, I don't have time now. It's not that you don't have time, it's not a priority. So if it's a priority, you're going to, and there are legitimate things like, what if I had a trip the next week? Yeah. We would have had to look at the calendar. Luckily, it didn't work out that way. But when you are prioritizing those things, it's pretty apparent. Yeah. And I think if you ask, and you can ask her Saturday, but I think if you ask my wife, this is not me bragging, I would say when I'm intentional at home, I'm doing it right more than I'm doing it wrong. Now, she would straight up tell you, like, no, you didn't get right all the time. Yeah. I wouldn't expect her to say that. But intent is the point behind it. And she knows my intent, even those times where I I don't quite get it right, but I'm intending to. Or I have something planned and something comes up and that gets squashed. Like,
I mean, you can have the best intentions in the world, like you're saying too. I mean, like, this literally happened in the last week, man. And she's on here now, so I'm probably gonna get butchered for this, but this happened with me and my wife literally a week ago. Like, I thought I was doing things and like getting things done that I had been putting off and whatnot. Well, she saw that day as a day that like I should have, put that time aside for her.
Yeah.
It was a day I shouldn't have had to be working and stuff. And whereas I saw it as like, shit, I got a free day, man. She's kind of doing some things. I'm going to go ahead and just knock this stuff out and like get this done so that I have the whole weekend and everything else to like us spend time. And I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to take care of this stuff. And I'm going to make these other little things. And like, It ended up causing us a problem because I didn't handle it well. I didn't read the situation right. My intention was not bad. And I think that's a big reason why that didn't go on. Like, this didn't turn into a big knockdown, drag out. It didn't, like, did we get into a little tiff? Yeah, for sure we did. We disagreed. Like, it happens with every couple.
Yeah.
And like, it was one of those moments where it's like, I think that didn't go as bad as it could have gone.
Right.
Because in the back of her mind, it's like, once I said what I said, like, she was kind of like, well, yeah, you didn't show that all day. Like, that's not how I took it.
Right.
Like,
perspective was a big deal.
But she knew that, like, obviously, like, that wasn't my intention, just to, seclude myself and, not pay any attention and do these things.
Yeah.
Like, I was legit trying to get things done that I had been putting off.
Right.
And like, I saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And like, I'm one of those people, like, I'm all or nothing. Like, I saw that window. I'm like,
we're
going, gonna knock these things out. I'm gonna get this stuff done.
Right.
So, I mean, like, it comes down to your intentions, I think.
Your intentions. And then there's a little bit to it with your track record, I think, in a little bit, because if you've proven over and over, like, well, you're not really doing this, there will be that seed planted in your spouse's mind, your friend's mind, like, oh, this guy does this all the time. He's really not doing it. So I think that's where the relationship piece comes in. And when you have that good relationship and like, y'all's, and I don't even know the details, but on what you just said, that was a perspective thing. So you, in your mind, your intentions weren't bad. What you were doing, this was why. And it sounds like you thought you had relayed that. Her perspective was different. Yeah. So it's not always in what you say. It's how it's received. And that could be a learning thing for both.
It can be all of those things and more too, because like, in all fairness, I don't have a great track record on that. Like, it's something that I consistently work on, because when I get in one of my modes, or I'm feeling creative, or I'm feeling productive, or, like, I just go. Yeah. I do.
And it's like, easy to do, especially when you're a hard charger.
I had a bad intention, and it wasn't like I didn't want to do these things, or I didn't want to have this conversation. And I wasn't avoiding something. But again, when you're trying to grow in an area, and you have a relapse, or you do something that tenders back towards that, like, it still causes you a problem. It's 100%. Still a growing and learning process. It comes down to y'all's communication.
Well, it comes down to your communication, and it comes down to how you react to it. Going back to the Echelon Front principles, like, that's the ownership piece of it. Like, this happened. How am I going to respond to what I did or didn't do? Like, you can sit there and play the blame game all day, but that's not constructive. So as you and your wife talked, like, you can share your intent, she can share her perspective, and y'all can like grow out of that for the next thing. Doesn't mean you're going to get it right every time next time, but I think that's the important piece of it.
How have you incorporated faith into this approach? Because, I mean, I think a lot of you and I's focus is personal growth and being better in all aspects of our life, whether it's health, fitness, business, leadership, family, marriage, all these different roles here. But like, how have you integrated faith into your life? Because I know it's become a bigger and bigger part of yours, and I think it was a turning point for you as well. So how have you integrated that to?
Yeah, I think it's still a growing thing. I think the more tapped into my faith I've gotten, the more I realize, I mean, it's something that as a Christian I knew, but ultimately that's my goal. Now, I think the things that I've aligned with are all things that can go hand in hand. Any of the things that I'm involved with can also help grow your faith. But I think ultimately, that's the most important mission, in my opinion. Even anything related to Echelon Front, like all of those principles, I could probably go through the Bible and find something to supplement that. It's not a Christian book, obviously. They're just smart principles that will help you in life. And I think if you apply that same, let's say you read Extreme Ownership and you apply these principles, you can do the same thing with the Bible for spiritual principles. But the Bible, from what I've seen as I've grown, it has practical applications to your daily life as well, which to me ties everything into being a spiritual thing. But so on this last podcast, I started reading. We had one of my buddies on Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. His name is Pat Tazi. And he was an East Coast SEAL, great dude. I've got to know him over the years. And he reads Stoicism every day as well. So I bought, starting January 1st, I got the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And
that is an awesome book.
It's a great book. And what I've been doing with it is I try to do it in the morning, but it's not always the morning. But daily, it's super easy too. Mm-hmm. But it's broken down by the day. Yeah, it's basically a quote and a half of a page.
Yeah.
So you can get through it. What I've been doing is I've read that, and then I try to read my Bible every day as well. But then I take whatever the principle is from this Stoic thing, which this is old stuff. The Bible's old stuff. And I'll use that already a good information piece for learning, for growing. But then I'll also okay, what's the Bible say about this? And it usually supplement each other. So I've really tried to tie that in together in my daily reading. So I'm reading the Stoicism, I'm reading the Bible, and then okay, so whatever the day, I haven't read today's yet, but whatever today's is, I'll look through the Bible, what's the Bible say about what this is saying? And if I look at everything with a lens like that, I think it really helps me in my Christian faith, in my walk, and in my outreach and how I interact with other people in general, on top of the personal growth of it. So, and I think that you said we're really focused on personal growth. I think that is a key point of what faith and the Bible has for us as well. So It goes hand in hand. It's really easy for me as we've gotten
funny
into.
You say that too about old stuff, this is old knowledge. I mean, I think so much of that comes out. Everybody's so caught up in AI and everything else that's coming on and information overload. And it's funny, this came up last week when we weren't able to do the show. I went on and did live for a little bit, just if anybody wanted to shoot the shit, have a conversation. And someone asked me, I was sitting in our home office with our library in the background, and people were asking me about books. And this is one of my favorite books that ended up coming up. And I'm going to butcher this, but it's America's 12 Greatest Salesmen.
Okay.
I had to pay a lot of money for this book. It's not published anymore.
Oh, okay.
Hasn't been published since I want to say the 1930s, 40s, something like that. But this was a Reader's Digest type thing. And they interviewed 12 of the best salesmen, male and female. And each one was a chapter, basically. It is amazing. Think how much the world has changed. And let's just call it 75 years.
Yeah.
75 years.
Yeah.
Those same principles still apply today.
Yeah.
Like, there are still great, amazing notes. Now, the scenario and some of those things have all definitely changed.
But the baseline principle.
But that base principle, whether you're now talking about creating a social media post, reaching out to a client, how you're dealing with a certain situation, man, like those fundamentals, like, they've worked for long periods of time for a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason.
And like, it's like, go back and find that knowledge. Yeah. Like, it's not, and it's one of my favorite books. Like, and like, those are sales tactics from 75 years ago, roughly.
Right.
You know, like, it's crazy that a book that was probably $5, not even that,
not even that back then, probably,
and a hardback cover that I had to pay like $200-300 to find a copy of used. It was like 75 years old. Like, but it's amazing. And it's a great book. Like, I still read it. Like, I'll go pick a chapter out and read it like maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
And you can apply something from it.
Yeah. What's maybe like a lesson you didn't expect to learn about leadership or something like that through the times now that you've done whatever you said, 30, 40 events with the groups last year? Like, what's something that maybe stands out to you that like you didn't expect to learn, or maybe it was like a little aha moment that like kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to that. I think what's interesting to me is because the principles they're teaching are the same every time, but we'll do corporate ones with different companies across the U.S. And so the way, and it may not, you know, it could be a construction company, it could be a tech company, whatever. So I may not know what they know about their industry, but the problems that they're having in the debriefs, like between runs on FTX, they may ask a question and they'll phrase it a certain way, and I'll be able to apply that to something going on in my life. And it's been unique. Really, it's not unique. It's just the problems across industries and people and life experiences and stuff. It's all the same things and how you apply them. So I think that really sank into me last year was like somebody would phrase something one way or somebody would phrase something another way, but these principles would just, you could apply it in all these ways, and seeing that different perspective on how it's applied, that's helped me a lot. I think the main one, and again, this wasn't the first time I'd heard it, but again, Cody, he's just such a exceptional teacher in how he presents this to stuff. I don't think he would care with me sharing the story because he shares at events and he just shared it on Jocko's podcast. But when he said he moved back home, him and his family, because his dad cheated on his mom. They split up, they divorced. You know, he's grown, he's got a family, he's working for Echelon Front. And she asked him at some point, he shares this all the time, she said, okay, with this extreme ownership, how do I take ownership of this situation where your dad cheated on me and left? And he'll say it. He said it just yesterday on the podcast with Jocko. He was like, I was new at Echelon Front. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to FaceTime her mom, FaceTime Jocko. He'll give you the answer on this. But that I'd heard it many times, but this year it really sank in. Like kind of we talked about before. Sometimes things just happen that are out of your control. And that's what I would say I took from last year. The biggest aha moment is, so what he told her was it's literally initially his thought was, well, what did you do? Like, what did you do to make him do that? That's not even applicable to that situation, but it's so quick to default to that. She didn't do anything. She was literally the victim. The ownership piece is, well, if you can't take ownership of any of the actions in that, it's how you respond to it. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me is when things happen to you, there are legitimately things that will happen to you that you didn't get a say in. And at that point, the ownership piece is, how are you going to respond to that moving forward? Because being a victim and a victim mentality are two different things. So if you respond to it with that victim mentality, you're just going to create that cycle of doom, really. But if you're a victim and you respond to it in the right ways and own your response to it, that's where you make the change. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. Again, I'd heard it many, many times, but for some reason last year it sank in like after the 30th time, like, oh man, that's real, because there are people that go through things that they literally have no control over, and be like, how do you want me to take ownership of that? Well, you can't. You just have to own your response to it. And I think that was...
Damn, that's powerful.
Yeah, it has been for me.
I mean, yeah. You don't always put it in those terms or think about it in that way.
Yeah.
And like you said, so many times it can be the same question worded differently. It could be the same answer, but how you get there or how it's applied can be slightly different.
Yeah.
But if the principle for how you go through the process,
on how to get to there, yeah,
respond, how you're going to react, and you saying what you just said a minute ago about Cody, it reminded me, and I don't remember the name of the book, but it was like Viktor Frankl, I think was his name, and he had some book that, like, I mean, I think he was in like the concentration camps or something like that, and it's like, well, the one thing you can't do is like, I still have my mind.
Yeah.
Like, like you can't change that for me. Like,
yeah.
So like, yeah, it's like, how do you control how you're going to react when one of those things happens or something bad does happen that wasn't your fault or out of your control, but like, how did you respond to it?
I think that's funny you said that too. That triggered. So one of the Daily Stoic pages this week was your mind and your choice. And they say things like, well, there are things out of your control, so you can't plan for every little thing, but how you react to it. So you could have a freak accident and get paralyzed. Well, now you don't have control of your body, but you have control of your mind and the things you think on and the choices you make and how you respond to things. And I think that applies kind of directly to that.
So there's a lot, and I mean, I don't know hardly any of these guys. I mean, I've met JP,
right,
but I don't know any of these other guys you've referenced per se. And they all have, especially when you start talking about team operators and stuff like that, they all have crazy different personalities and how they deal with things. But when you get them back to the core, I was joking about this with Jason's wife when I was out in Virginia, and I was like, what's really wild is if you take a team of SEALs that has operated together, separate them, put them in different rooms, and you get to know them, like you start seeing different personalities and stuff.
Yeah.
But the minute you put them together, fucking Voltron forms. And the minute Voltron forms, the quietest guy might now be the loudest guy, but for a certain reason or whatever else. But when they come together, bro.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you've witnessed this like thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. What have you taken from watching or learning from these different personalities? Because my experience being around a lot of elite operators, no matter, not just SEALs, but like, whatever.
And Echelon Front, SEALs, Marines,
Rangers, Delta Force, whatever you want to throw out there. They all have this aspect of like, not many of them boast about really anything. They're very humble, but man, can they change their intensity and stuff on a dime and be laser focused or super step back, really taking in everything. What's maybe an experience like that you've had or something you've learned watching that? Because those personalities are like really different versus like when you see them and you're also seeing them interact in a business setting, or you get out on the course with them at a muster or an FTX and you guys are doing some other kind of training where then now you're seeing them really in their element and they're showing you how that applies to life.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think the benefit of like all the people I've gotten to be around at Echelon Front, everybody has the same mission. So seeing how they can apply it and then apply it to their different outlooks or upbringings or whatever they went through, that in and of itself is huge. I think the biggest thing is all these guys are super humble. There's no ego. Like, it's non-existent. And they genuinely care. And by that, at the FTX, typically the FTX is it's Cody and then JP's there. But to your point, like the way they amp things up or bring things down, it's like they're so detached and see all these things when they're even in a group talking one-on-one with somebody, they can laser focus in on whatever that issue is and then deliver it the way it needs to be received. Now, they're never like berating them. It's coming from a place of care, but I've seen them get a little more direct and loud, I guess, but attention grabbing in addressing these things. But I think because it all comes from a place of where they care and wanting to see people be better and using their experiences to build on that, it's just an awesome thing to see. Like pretty much every event, there's some type of connection in there where they're just picking up on things, and they're picking up on things that I don't see yet, obviously, because they're just so ingrained in it. And like, this guy's struggling with this, and it's a group of 30 different leaders, but they can apply it individually to each one and meet them where they need to hear it at. And it's phenomenal.
What's been the most humbling experience you've had at one of these, where they put you in a situation or had you participating in something that, like, I don't know, maybe you weren't expecting, or it caught you off guard, or you learned a lesson, or it just like kind of humbled you to, like, maybe they had you demonstrating, but it like put you in and you saw a different perspective. So and like, we're interacting with them, but as far as the instruction goes, like, we're just there for support. Now, there have been times, maybe it didn't have to be at one of these events. I'm just saying, just from your relationship.
There is one though at an event. So at the end of every event, there's like a closing ceremony. We give final thoughts. Everybody gives their 20-second takeaway. We give them a challenge coin, whatever. And a lot of times they'll ask for somebody from the team. So it's all about perspective. So we hear the instructor's perspective, we hear the participant's perspective, and they'll typically ask somebody from the team to give because it's a total different perspective. We've been out there going against them. And I'm on a podcast, and I'm really comfortable talking to people that I know. I'm comfortable talking to people in a one-on-one or group thing, not in front of everybody, but same, like, I'm not like a public speaker or anything. And JP came up to me one time. He was like, "Hey, you're going to give your closing thoughts, in like 5 minutes." And it's super simple, but that was big for me. Luckily I take notes, like, cause I'm constantly trying to learn too. So I had something, but it also added kind of the value of what we're doing and the different perspectives. Like, the interactions they have with the instructors, that's the key, but everything we do on the side is also just as important. So then them hearing that perspective, it was humbling to be able to share my perspective and see people like, "Oh yeah, that's good. That's good." I'm not saying I said anything like mind blowing or anything.
That's a lot more intense though. I mean, that's the same scenario almost what happened to me. Is like, you put me on stage in front of my peers and my colleagues and all these people, and then boom, spotlight, talk about it.
Yeah.
Dude, that's,
and I said something for like 26 seconds or something, but
I had 2 minutes and lasted like, I don't know, 26 seconds. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, but that was a big one, but it was good too, to help also keep me focused, because again, even though I love it, and even though I see the value, it is also real easy to be like, all right, well, we're between runs. I need to go prep this stuff. Like, staying dialed into what the mission is too. That it was a wake up call too. Like, hey, we're also helping facilitate this training. Like, we're involved. It's not just get it in, get it out, let's go. Like, there's meaning behind it, and I think that's important.
What are you going to do if he hands you like a Cole Swindell concert T-shirt next time?
I'll sign it. I'll sign it, Cole Swindell.
If y'all didn't know, he's Cole Swindell's like stunt double.
Yeah, I'm the fall guy.
Fills in a lot of his music videos.
I didn't know it till like a week ago, but I definitely see it.
You two put a ball cap on? Man.
Yeah, I should have worn my hat today.
Yeah, you get caught up in there. And I have to know this. Is Point Break really your favorite movie?
Point Break is 100% my favorite movie.
Wow.
It's the best movie.
The best.
The best movie. It's got everything. It's got action, comedy.
Which you watch it, you can quote it. I can do that to Goodfellas. I don't know.
Yeah, probably 90% if it was playing.
The only thing I remember on Point Break is when Keanu Reeves, I even take the skin off the chick.
You don't remember Vaya con Dios or Back Off War Child Seriously or... Yeah.
It was driving me nuts today when he kept saying they were talking about, I guess you were wearing a T-shirt. I mean, I was driving listening to it, so I wasn't watching it. But when you guys were talking about that, and I kept hearing Back Off War Child, I'm like, why do I know this? This is driving me nuts. Like, I would have Googled it.
So that's when he gets jumped. You know, they're undercover, and he's just been out surfing, and he gets jumped by these other surfer dudes. One of them is Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they come up there and they're about to beat him up, and they're in the act of beating him up, and then Bodie comes running up there and he like whoops ass and he's like, "Back off, War Child, seriously." That's just a great point.
Now I'm gonna go home with the patio and watch it.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. I mean, Gary Busey, Utah, bring me two. Like,
I mean, I haven't watched that movie in so long.
It has to be one of the movies that comes on TV.
When you're homesick.
Oh, man.
You just watch it, yeah.
I watch it probably twice a year. Yeah, it's. I remember when I got it for Christmas one year on VHS, and me and my brother watched it like twice in one day. It was just, it's the best. You got surfing, you got skydiving, you got shootouts, you got bank robbery, you got dead presidents, like.
I mean, it does cover a lot of ground.
Just saying.
It does cover a lot of ground. I can't knock you on that one. I'd love to. And I was like really thinking all day long, like, what kind of funny joke can I make out of this and bust Josh with? No. So what do you got planned for 2025, man? Like, where are you going in 2025? What do you got? What are some of the goals? What are you guys trying to do?
2025, we are, so our me and JP's t-shirt printing company, we're taking orders. So grow that.
That's official now?
Oh, yeah. We're a handful of orders in. Yeah. So,
all right.
And
so
lots of good practice for buddies. Like, we've got buddies that have shooting companies that we've been getting reps on for them and stuff. But official orders, we got orders out. Like, it's open. I wouldn't say we're masters yet. So, like, you may send us a logo and it's going to take us, we'll be transparent about that. But yeah, so the goal is to grow that out. Obviously, the goal is to do more at Echelon Front. So the more they give me, the more I'm going to take. The logistics role and everything, like, I'm settling into that pretty good. This will be my first full year doing it. So we got some trips building up with that. So spreading that mission, continue to grow Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu. I think this year we want to do a couple of out-of-state events with that. We did one down in Dripping Springs last year. That's not really it's obviously not
when you came back with your new fanny pack.
Oh, I've had that fanny pack for years, man. This is the way.
You got the Tim Kennedy edition.
No, I got the Everly stock. I don't have the sheepdog. So
I find it hard to believe you did not come back with one.
No, I already had it. I already had it in stock. We'll have to check the tape, check the pictures. But, grow that out. Hopefully do a couple events outside, to some different areas we want to get to, and just keep spreading the word for Echelon Front, keep spreading the word for Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu, keep growing the kickboxing gyms, stay intentional with my family, and get a little bit better every day.
How was Pursuit this last one you guys
Pursuit was
had?
real good this last time. Yeah, we want to keep doing that. So as my schedule allows, we'll pour into
I want to
that.
know more about the tattooed teacher, man.
Oh, man.
I've been talking to him on Instagram, and me and Biz might just have to go to Oklahoma and do a podcast. Like,
well,
I
hey,
gotta figure this out. Then, like,
he's putting some kids through right now,
Yeah, I saw.
and we are. I don't think he'll care if I say, but like their trajectory for their final thing, I think February 2nd, we'll be rolling up there. It's a Sunday, so if you guys want to come up, I'm sure he'd be totally cool with that. So we can verify with him, but
yeah, we'll have to check on that and like see if we can't make that happen. Like, because I think you guys would enjoy this. Like, I've been following this guy for a little while, and I think he brings some really unique perspectives, and he's absolutely someone, from what I know, and granted, I've never met this guy in person, so you have to take Josh's word, not mine. Don't judge a book by its cover. Like, I think that's the best way to say it. I mean, it's like, he doesn't appear to me to be as big and as intimidating of a guy as like a Cody Gandy.
yeah,
But like, same thing.
yeah.
And like, looks like someone he's definitely someone you wouldn't want to like have bad intentions with.
No.
But like, you would see him walking down a alley in Deep Elm, and you'd be like, I ain't messing with that dude. I'm walking on the other side of the sidewalk. And yet he's probably like one of the like most nicest, humble human beings in the world.
He's a guy, like, he's got a couple books. If you hear his full story, he went on JP's podcast. Army
That's
vet,
where I first saw him. And
Army vet
following.
as well, but like, he's taken his past, the things he's learned, and poured it into his passion for kids, and he's just living out his mission. And he's one of the most genuine, down to earth, do anything for you guys, and he lives it out. So yeah, great dude.
Yeah, like this guy literally grew up on the reservations in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Like
Wewoka, Oklahoma, Seminole Nation.
Wewoka.
Yeah.
And he's proud about it, man. He puts it all out there. Like, I mean, I'm super interested. Like, man, I just started like commenting on some of his things, man, and he was like spitting fire right back, and I was like, dude, this dude is cool as shit.
Dialed
like,
in, great dude.
Just throwing it right back. And then I saw. I had a couple conversations with him on like Instagram Messenger or something like that, and then I saw him at Pursuit when I saw some of the photos come back with you guys, and I was like, oh shit, like, more involved than I thought, like, you know, 100%. Like,
and that was, so he went as a participant a couple years ago, and then this last time he rolled out to help on the serve team. So me, him, and Isaac, JP, group of other people, but yeah, solid dude.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I want to thank you again for coming back on, sharing your message, sharing your stories, man. I think there's so much value in it. And again, people seeing this, like, I mean, you're a perfect example of just following and pursuing things you're into, putting yourself out there, going in with the right intentions, and letting life give you what you're giving life. And putting that out there. So, dude, I want to thank you for coming on, man. It's like,
thanks for having me, man.
Great to have you back on here, bro. I'm sure we'll do it again sometime.
Hope so. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. But you guys, we will be back again next week. Same time, same place. Got an interesting guest for you guys again next week. I'm bringing out, you guys will see, you get to meet my golf coach.
Oh.
Former PGA player. Teaches golf at PSG at Pure Swing Golf Academy. Give my guy Anthony Broussard a big shout out over there. I've been taking lessons from these guys for a while. They're rebuilding my shitty golf game. Hopefully I can kick Miguel and all them's asses very soon again and be back on top of the game. I'm sure they're going to get on and harass the shit out of me next week. Oh, this is the guy that makes you suck even more. I mean, I can already hear it all come. But we'll have Nick Sheeb on here next week, and we've got a lot of interesting stuff lined up for you guys kicking off the year. So hope you guys will join us again next week. Peace.